Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. American Pickers Mike Wolfe reveals Frank's drug addiction. After the death of American Pickers Frank Fritz this past September, his co-host and series creator Mike Wolfe has opened up about losing him. During a conversation, Wolfe shared details of Fritz's struggle with addiction. Wolfe also revealed how he tried to help him, as well as sharing a few words in his memory. Frank Fritz stopped appearing on American Pickers in 2020. Mike Wolfe and Frank Fritz served as co-hosts on American Pickers when it first began in 2010. The series, which aired on the History Channel, saw Wolfe and Fritz venture throughout America in search of artifacts they can buy from collectors. Fritz had made his last appearance on American Pickers in March 2020. He was officially fired from the show the following year. In a recent conversation with People, Wolfe talked about Fritz's firing from the show. He also described how his former co-host struggled with addiction. As Wolfe explained, Fritz had undergone surgery after hurting his back moving things around his home. As Wolfe noted, the timing made things especially dangerous. Wolfe noted that, with that time off and him having surgery, it was like the perfect storm. He became addicted to opioids, and that's when everything changed. While discussing what happened, Wolfe made it a point to note that he felt he didn't have the right to tell Fritz's story, saying that rightfully belonged to Fritz. However, he noted, "But I feel the right to tell the personal story of how myself and so many people struggled to navigate what was going on in his life." Wolfe also revealed that he tried to stage an intervention on Fritz's behalf. As he shared, "I remember running into him like a month later. He said he was just going to handle everything on his own, and I asked him how he was doing. He said, 'I'm fine. No, I'm really fine.' And then like a month later, he was gone." Wolfe knew when he knew things couldn't go back, saying he never ever gave up on Fritz. Wolfe said he also tried to help Fritz enter rehab. Ultimately, he noted, "And so watching Frank doing some of the things that he was doing, it was really hard." The issues also impacted the show, with production calling for negative drug tests. Wolfe noted it was the network that made the final decision on what the show would do. "They're just like, listen, we have to move on. We have to keep going with this." "I had mixed emotions about doing that, and we were just trying to figure out what we were going to do." Wolfe then compared losing Fritz to losing a brother. Fritz leaving the show wasn't easy for him. As Wolfe shared, "I was just kind of left to fend for myself in a lot of ways. I could finish his sentences, he could finish my sentences." Wolfe also noted there was talk of having Fritz eventually rejoin the show. However, in 2022, he realized it wasn't ever going to happen after he suffered a stroke in 2022. Ultimately, Wolfe ended the conversation with some words describing his former co-host. As he shared, "He was a beautiful, beautiful person that, to be honest with you, who knows what our lives would have been like if there was never a show," says Wolfe. "I just want people to know who he was." The sun was barely rising over the sleepy town of Le Claire-Valois, but the familiar glow of antique archaeology's sign was already drawing fans and travelers alike. Inside, past the rusty treasures and stacks of vintage signs, sat Mike Wolfe, the heart of American Pickers. He was uncharacteristically quiet, sipping coffee alone, as he waited for his longtime friend and colleague, Frank Fritz. To the world, American Pickers had been a road trip dream, an Americana journey featuring two best friends who combed through barns and backyards, rescuing items of a bygone era. For over a decade, fans watched Mike and Frank make quirky, historic discoveries, but behind the laughs and camaraderie, there were silent struggles few were aware of, especially those of Frank. Frank Fritz's health challenges had been public knowledge. After taking time off the show, he battled Crohn's disease, and then complications from his health issues eventually took him off the road with Mike. But behind closed doors, there was a struggle far more intense, far darker, and it was one that would change their dynamic forever. As Mike took a sip of his coffee, he remembered the days when he and Frank would be up at dawn, driving along winding country roads, talking about old finds, the future, and their lifelong dream of preserving American history. Frank's wit, humor, and genuine passion for picking had been an essential ingredient in the show's success. But that morning, everything felt different. For the first time, Mike would need to address a painful truth. Then came the fateful day when Frank finally opened up about his addiction. He'd gone through rough patches, hidden behind his smiles and offhand jokes. Mike listened as Frank shared the relentless struggle, the loneliness, and the countless moments he'd felt ashamed. Frank, a man who had seemed unstoppable, laid his vulnerabilities bare, and Mike, who'd always seen himself as the optimistic, grounded counterpart, felt helpless. "I didn't want anyone to know, Mike," Frank had admitted, his voice choked. "Not you, not anyone. I didn't want it to end like this. I wanted to be stronger." In that moment, the unshakable image of Frank Fritz, the carefree picker, the one who wore Hawaiian shirts and loved the open road, shattered for Mike. He was looking at a friend who had been silently wrestling with a demon, with little more than his own willpower as a weapon. Mike knew that addiction wasn't something Frank could simply pick himself out of, like an old tool from a pile of rusted metal. This was different. It would require strength, patience, and support, qualities that Mike wasn't sure he could always offer in a way that Frank needed. But he also knew he couldn't turn his back on him. There was a delicate balance to maintain, though. With American Pickers at its peak, Mike was under pressure to continue, to keep the show's spirit alive. Viewers wanted their weekly journey into forgotten attics and dusty sheds, and the network urged him to keep picking. With Frank's absence, he brought in his brother, Robbie, but it wasn't the same. He saw the comments from fans online, felt the emails pouring in, questioning where Frank had gone and when he'd return. Every time he thought about opening up about Frank's struggle, his loyalty to Frank's privacy held him back. Addiction was personal, raw, and exposing it publicly felt like a betrayal. But after months of silence, the time had come for the truth. Frank's absence was no longer a mystery to be swept under the rug. Mike felt that people deserved honesty, and perhaps in that honesty, there would be a glimpse of hope for others struggling in silence. On a rainy evening in Nashville, with the antique shop quiet and the streets slick, Mike finally penned a heartfelt statement, revealing Frank's journey and the challenges he had been facing. He chose his words carefully, balancing the need for transparency with respect for his friend's privacy. He wrote not as a television personality but as a friend who had witnessed the heartache and struggle, hoping to dispel rumors and foster understanding. The revelation wasn't a tabloid splash, it was raw, simple, and human. He asked fans to keep Frank in their thoughts, to offer support rather than judgment. As expected, reactions varied. There were those who understood, who sent messages of encouragement, who empathized with Frank's battle. But there were also voices that questioned, wondered why it had taken so long to tell the truth. Frank, in the meantime, was focusing on healing. Away from the cameras and the pressure of fame, he began to take small, hopeful steps. Rehabilitation was no easy journey, and every day brought its own set of challenges, but Frank felt a renewed sense of purpose, an understanding that his battle was shared by many others across the country, people who felt the same struggle but fought alone. Mike stayed by his side, even if from afar, supporting in any way he could. The long drives, the camaraderie, the laughter, they were memories Mike held close, reminders of why he was standing by Frank's side. As much as Mike missed his partner on the show, he knew that Frank's journey now was of a different kind. In time, the story of Frank Fritz and his struggle with addiction became more than just a headline. It became a message about resilience, friendship, and the silent battles many face. For Mike, it marked a profound change, a reminder of the power of vulnerability and the strength it takes to be open. American Pickers might have continued without Frank, but to Mike, the heart of the show would forever carry the spirit of his friend and the moments they'd shared on the road. He had hopes that one day Frank might return, not just to the show, but to the life he deserved, one of peace, health, and healing.